It's all good.
Hello, Kathy, and welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I love talking to fellow improvisers, so I'm very excited.
Excellent. Well, I love talking to fellow improvisers too, for the most part. I don't know if you encounter this in your improv days, but sometimes, even as an improviser, being around a whole group of improvisers all the time sometimes got to be a little bit much.
It can be. It's like, where's the off switch? Is there a mute button for you guys? You need to, yeah,
Exactly. Like at a
yeah.
show, after the performance, awesome. But when you're like at a friend's wedding and you just still offer a response, let's just relax for a minute.
Yeah, just chill. It's
Yeah.
okay.
But I'm looking forward to this delightfully because we are fellow improvisers, but also we're in similar applied improv spaces. So we'll talk about
Yeah.
some similar things, but I'm sure we do some different things and have some different points of view.
Yeah. Yeah.
So before we get into that, I just want to give you a chance to introduce yourself to people who are not familiar with you on my podcast. So could you just give us like the kind of 1 minute quick, I know it's tough, but the 1 minute quick overview of Kathy Klotz-Guest, like who you are and what you're up to?
Yeah. So really it's imagine like a performer, an improviser and stand-up comedian has a baby with somebody who spent 2 decades leading tech teams, and that's me. That's me. And so it's a combo package of taking all those lessons from both the business stage and the improv and comedy stages and really blending them to help teams you know, unlock more of that good potential that you and I both know they have, but they get blocked here and there. And so, how do we get them out of their own way? And how do we um, really neutralize, I think, some of the kind of fear and all the stuff that happens in these corporate spaces, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's
That's
a
it.
great place to start. And I don't know if you're like me, but after I speak, wanna people always wonder, well, how did you get started with this? So I want to turn that a bit to you. But
Yeah.
first, let's talk about you worked as a leader in tech, as a
Yeah.
woman in Silicon Valley, where you were
Mm.
probably a very small minority.
Yeah.
Uh, so how did that? Like, did you always have an interest in tech growing up, or did you just kind of stumble into it? Like, how did you become a leader in tech at that point in time?
Oh, it was completely by accident, really. I mean, I it's such a great question because I really fell into it. I mean, I grew up here in the Bay Area, and so after college, I was like, I don't know. I had a bunch of offers in tech, and I went, okay, why not? So I went into tech and was unprepared for the reality of being sometimes the only woman in a room or one of two, and then you'd find each other. Sometimes I'm sure you've had that experience where you see somebody like you because there's not a lot of people that look like you in a room, and then you lock eyes and you're like, let's talk. And I sort of stuck with it, and then little by little started, kind of failing, not sure how to fit in, and just started saying yes and to opportunities that came my way. And little by little, sort of found myself in a space that I was like, I don't even know anything about leading teams, but okay, I'll give it a try.
So was
And
that a
so
case where like supervisors saw like leadership potential in you before you did, and they're like, "Oh, you should lead this team," or did you like volunteer and be like, "Well, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to volunteer to do this"?
I think it was a mix. It really honestly was a mix. I think I had a boss that was like, "You're so great. You're like a diamond in the rough." And then I had I had a guy come up to me, a coworker. We were up for the same promotion. He's like, "I hope you don't get it, and I hope if you get it, you fail." And I was like, "Good to know." So
Really, an
yeah,
actual
really.
coworker?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
is this like a coworker within your team that you had to work with?
Yes. Yeah, coworker in my team. And then I got the promotion because people skills.
Wait,
And
you're saying the person who said that to you didn't have good people skills?
I know, shocking, right? But he didn't get it. And then, so I had a feel, and then I never got any formal leadership training at all, like at
Mm.
all. The only training I ever had formally was like they sent me to like Decker School, which was like you learn how to do presentations. And I was like, am I going to present my way through leadership? Like, how is this going to work? I don't know how to do this. But I think like everything else, I just felt like, okay, I've yes anded hard things before, and I'm just gonna, figure it out. And I'm gonna have to learn to swim in the deep end of the pool. And that's kind of what I did little by little. Because I really didn't have any formal. I think honestly, comedy was the best training that I had.
Mm. Yeah, and I want to get into that in a moment, but I want to kind of this story is so interesting to me for a couple of reasons. First, I just got to know: did this person stay on the team after you got the promotion?
You want to know? Yeah, he did. And here's the MO that happened, which a lot of people might recognize, is that so he stayed on the team, and then he would just do an end run around me. I'd say, okay, well, I need this whatever proposal by the end of the day or tomorrow, and he'd be like, we'll see, and then he'd go around do an end run to my bigger boss around me. And one of the joys of being a woman in tech is that did any of the higher bosses like have your back and go, no, 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 you should go to Kathy? No, no.
Wow.
But eventually, as these things do, I got a job in another division, and I think sort of got out of that. But honestly, it was the ultimate original survivor. You're like, I will outlast, I will outwill. I grew up in a family, a big family. Like I think I sort of feel like I've done the reps here for dealing with this kind of stuff. Wasn't easy, but I know I'm not alone. I'm sure like you have stories, and it's how much you just go, I think I can do this. I'm gonna prove them wrong because what choice do I have? I'm just gonna
Yeah.
keep doing it. Yeah.
That's that's it's wild. It's so funny, right? I started out in tech as well in the East Coast. Like I was a programmer, had an engineering degree, and worked while doing the improv. But I guess I was very fortunate. Like I had a good boss, and my kind of my main job was at Chase before it became JP Morgan Chase, and just I happened to have like 3 or 4 women already on the team. It was very rare, I guess, very different. So I was, and the
Yeah.
person I worked most closely with was a woman. So it's just wild how that sort of. But I guess Silicon Valley is a whole different
Oh,
different world at that time. Um,
yes, very different.
so you mentioned yes and a couple times, and comedy
Yeah.
was the best training. So
Yeah.
when did you start doing improv? When did you start doing stand up? Was it before you worked in tech? Like did you start doing it in the middle? Like, when did that evolve?
So I was living parallel lives. It was really fragmented. I part of being the joys of being a woman in Silicon Valley in those days was I was told, don't be funny, don't laugh so much. You laugh too much, nobody will take you seriously. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So I
And
right after
sorry, let me interject for 1 second. Was that advice given to you in general, or was that advice given to you because you were a woman?
I think it was both. I think just generally speaking, tech was like uber serious. I think everybody got that. I think you're right. I think the extra cherry on the icing was as a woman, you're already fighting a battle to be taken seriously. And so
Mm-hmm.
other women thought they were helping me and they were like, don't laugh so much. You won't be taken seriously.
Oh,
Put your
this was
hair
advice from other women coming to you.
women and men, but mostly
Wow. Okay.
women,
Okay.
mostly women who thought they were helping me, but they weren't. But so I got that advice, which was very bad advice, by the way. Never listen. And at the same time, right after college, I actually started in stand-up. I started in stand-up after college,
Mm-hmm.
and then about a couple years, three years or so into stand-up, somebody said, you're like a people person, like, and not all stand-ups are. Like, you should do improv. And I was like, I always wanted to. So about 3 years after doing stand-up, I jumped into improv and sketch, and I loved improv. And I felt like, wow, this whole yes and have your back kind of thing. I like that because I don't have that in my day job.
Yep.
Like I was like, I like this. This feels human to me. And that's kind of how it happened. So I was living these two like parallel paths, like, robotic Kathy, trying to get along, survive. And then, on the stage, I was like, oh my God, this is so great. I can sort of have fun and people show up for each other for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Improvisers, we're not perfect, but generally speaking, we try.
Yes. It's the
So
right. Yeah.
yeah,
Come from the
it
right
was
motivation. So did you have?
exactly.
I'm curious. Did you, if you had the experience I did? Because like in my non-stage life, I'm a little more introverted and quiet. Um, so when
Mm.
people at work found out, like at my IT job, found out that I did this stuff, they were like, "What, you?" So I don't know. Or were you more like people kind of, "Oh, of course, Kathy does improv," or were you kind of almost like two personas for a while?
You know what? I think people weren't shocked because before I took the bad advice of like cleaving myself, I was always like, I was like doing jokes in meetings and stuff, and then it was like tone it down, tone it down.
Mm-hmm.
So people were like, that tracks. I think a lot of people were like, yeah, that tracks. And then some people were really blown away. And I think it was just a mix, but the people who really knew me were like, yeah, I get it. You're being kind of put in a box here, so you have to have some place where you can be yourself and not
Mm.
be like put in that box.
Yeah, and I think that's such a. I think especially with improv. I mean, I think people can find this in a lot of areas, but
Yeah.
what I love about improv is because it's on the spot. There's no writing, no editing. Like it is you just being yourself. Really, it's the best creative expression form I've found.
Oh my gosh, I so agree with you. It is the best. And that's the beauty is that I think generally speaking, there really is no right or wrong. Sometimes you beat yourself up later. You're like, I should have said this other thing. But because we're comedians, folks, and that's what we do. We rewrite. Generally speaking, it was so great to have a break from the day job of like, oh my God, this is suffocating to be in a creative space, to your point of just being able to like have that freedom of expression. I was like, this is amazing. Why can't every day be like this?
Well, I think that question then sort of leads to what you're doing now. So
Yeah.
how did that transition happen? You worked for a while with in the tech job, and you're doing improv stand up. So when did you decide that all right, I'm gonna kind of blend these and leave this job behind and start my own business?
I knew I wanted to start my own business after my first was born. Because I remember I had my son. My first son came early, like 2.5 weeks early. I get a call literally 3 days after my son was born. And I had an episiotomy, so every woman knows like this is like serious, like you need healing time.
Mm-hmm.
So I have this baby Avish, and I get a call from my boss. He's like, congratulations, I need you in Japan next week.
Are you kidding?
Not kidding. And I was like, no can do. I had a baby, not a football. So no, I can't do that. And I
The baby
realized
would fit. He would fit in
like
carry on,
anything
right? He'd be
else.
fine.
Yeah, you'll be fine. It's okay. I know you're stitched up and you can't walk right, but you know what? Come on, get on a plane. And he was like, but I need you. And I realized that it wasn't need, it was dependence. And it was like, it
Mm.
was not healthy. And so I remember saying at some point, I really need to do this thing. So while I was still in tech, I started this side thing. And little by little, started to grow it. But I think after my first son was born, I realized this is not I can't do this long term. I was working too many hours. How was I going to have a family, do comedy, be, a business leader? And like, it just was too much. And it also wasn't making me happy. I was not happy.
Mm.
And of course, anybody who's ever felt othered in a room or felt like you didn't fit in, you'll relate to this. And that's a human thing. I just felt like I was tired of like being a woman in the room and being talked over and having to work so hard. And I just thought, why? It just wasn't giving me joy.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
It's
Mm-mm.
it's it's so interesting, and I've been doing the speaking thing for like 20 years, and
Yeah.
I still feel like I'm figuring it out. And
Yeah.
I'm working on new
Yeah.
material, and I'm working on stories, and I'm like going through my life and I'm actually using some AI to help prompt me like to come up with stories.
Yeah.
And the common thread, which I've talked about tangentially, but is that literally like every story that turned into a success in my life, I'm like, well, that looked fun, so I did that. And
Yes.
and then that looked fun, so I tried that. That's why I started doing improv. It's why I started doing stand up. It's why I like started doing martial arts. Like it looks fun. Oh hey, look, this is a life transformative thing. And yet you
Yeah.
probably experience this as well, especially in corporate in the work world, is it's almost discounted. It's almost like not only are we not caring about the fun, but if it's fun, we feel guilty about doing it, which is like the exact
Yes.
opposite.
Yes, so true. Oh my God, you hit it on the head. It's like we don't do fun here. And I was like, how can you not do fun? We're human. We still have to breathe. Like it's like I never understood that. It just made no sense to me. And you and I both know from the stage the difference it can make when we take this attitude of like, let's make mistakes, let's figure it out. It's not the end of the world. Quite the opposite is then we don't fear failure so much. And like it's so transformational. Why do we fear fun because it's not serious? And then I think about what was said to me when I was a young woman, and all the times that embodies it right there. We're suspicious of it, and it's such a shame because the very thing that can transform us, as you well know from your improv background, it's like it's fun. It's like this is not a dirty thing, people. This is healthy.
Yeah, it's. I think there's so much programming. I think from the kind of the Puritan work ethic and
Yeah.
the Depression era. Like, hey, we just gotta. But that's message been passed down. It's such a different world now. But And like I
Yeah.
think about the movies and things that I valued growing up, it was like the sports or the martial arts, but it was always that scene where like they would just have to sacrifice so much and be miserable and go through the muck. And to me, in my
Yeah.
mind, that became like, if you enjoy it, no, you gotta like suck and suffer. And that's, it's like, oh, but if I look at reality, like, oh, the people who are really being innovative and creative, like, they're not beating themselves up. They're just playing and experimenting and suffering less, even.
Exactly. And it's so funny too. You'll appreciate this because you do stand up as well. I remember like I did this performance at a club, and this guy came up to me afterwards, and he was a fellow comedian that I sort of knew, and he said, "Yeah, yeah, great set." He said, "But you seem way too put together and healthy to be a stand-up comedian." He's like, he goes, "You don't seem sort of ridden." And I was like, "Everybody has their trauma," but he was just like, "I don't know. You definitely seem like an improviser because." You just seem way too healthy to be on that to be
Well,
stand up. And I thought, isn't that funny that there is that thing where like as an artist, like you're supposed to like suffer and you're supposed to like and there that is true because comedy is therapy, as we both know.
yeah,
Uh, but it doesn't always have to be that, nor does it have to be that way in companies. It's like, fun can be the reprieve, but it also can be the very transformational method you just said, which is to play and experiment and try stuff. It doesn't have to hurt. Like, why do we associate with like the bad stuff?
well, it's so ironic too, because you work with a lot of leaders, and I'm sure that if you talk to any of them, and if I talk to any leaders I work with, what do you want
Yeah,
your culture to look like? They'll
yeah,
say we want it to be positive, supportive, collaborative,
yeah,
creative, and like those are all like fun things. But then when you
yeah.
look, what are you doing to implement that day to day? It's like, well, I'm demanding they do it. It's like, that's not really how it works.
Yeah, exactly. We will all have fun. We will have fun by management objective and MBOs. And here's the bar chart on fun. And you will have fun. It's like, no, stop.
It's one of my
Stop.
favorite little like cartoons. I don't know if it was The Far Side or whatnot, or just a random one that some business person made, but it was like, it was like a shit, like a galley type ship with
Yeah.
a driver being like, the beatings will continue until morale improves. I'm like, that sums up so much, I think.
It's so true. It's so true. It's so funny. And isn't it ironic that like everything this leader was describing to you, we want to have fun. We want to, and you're like, yeah, you just described improv. You just
Mm-hmm.
described fun. You hear yourself. And it's interesting that the very thing they know they need, that is fun. But it's like if you don't give it a fancy like suffering name, they don't see it as like, something they have to do. You
Yeah,
got
like
to
how
put
do
fun by
you
objective or
like how do you
fun.
justify us having fun? Like, oh,
Yeah.
because
I
life is
want a
short.
business
Like,
case analysis, Avish. Give me the business case analysis for fun, and I need it. And I need bar charts, and I need it. And
yeah, exactly. So let's talk about your approach then now. So this kind of
yeah,
was your journey, and I know
yeah,
you have a book. If you're watching this on video, you can see "Stop Boring Me," and
yes.
your website and your company is called Keeping It Human.
Hmm.
So, kind of, what is your approach now if you're going to work with a
Yeah,
client and kind of helping them?
yeah. So it really is. The approach is probably very similar. It's like, where are you stuck? What's missing? And it's all this. It's very much the same thing. I know every leader, and I say this with love. Dear leader, you think you're special. You are special. And yet the needs are different. They may be slightly different, but I think they're universal.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere, all teams struggle with really similar things, as we know. So it really is about, um, you know, do you, what's the biggest problem? And I think the biggest problem I see over and over again is like, teams are stuck. Teams are doing more with less. We're expecting so much. And you and I both know from tech that the product life cycles are shorter. There's so much like unknown and uncertainty, especially with AI, people are scared. And I don't think that we do enough as leaders to really talk about it. So my approach is like, okay, where does it hurt? What do we need to do? And like 9.5 times out of 10, everything you and I do can be the antidote to making it better for them.
Mm-hmm.
But it may even mean that improv is the how. It's the how, it's not the what.
Mm-hmm.
So what we sell is a way to rethink these challenges and to make them easier. Yeah. So a lot of my clients are tech, not exclusively, but a lot of them struggle, pretty much with the same things.
Hmm. So are you running them through improv games? You play improv games and stuff with them?
Oh, we do, but like you probably appreciate, it's pretty much applied. It's very much applied.
Yeah.
So when we say applied, it's like I'm not having them get up there and do like a pure stage game in
Hmm.
its purest form. It's really like, all right, if you're struggling with communication in your team, let's apply, some of the games you and I both know to, make it easier for you guys to say the truth, to be grounded, to listen to each other. And I know yes and gets overplayed, but you and I both know how important it is
Hmm.
and how overlooked it is. And just some of the, basic applied things of offers and listening that you and I take for granted now, it's new to them. And their team just doesn't hear each other. They don't know how to disagree without blame and shame. And they just basic communication and things like that. So we're applying that to solve those challenges. And it takes a little bit, but I've never seen a team not make progress if they were committed. Like if you're really committed to
Mm.
this and do it consistently for a week, track the progress, then do it for 2 weeks, then do it for a month. And once they sort of get in that habit, they see the before and after.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I think that's such an important lesson that I know I talk a lot about with
yeah,
improv is that like that step by step approach. It's not, the tech life cycle of like, oh, here's the 2 year plan. It's like take a step, try it for a
exactly.
week, and then see what happens. I think the same thing in improv, right? It's like the people who have an idea where the scene's going to end up always flame out
Mm,
because they're cutting their creativity off. It's
yeah,
being that adaptable, and people, so many
yeah.
people hate that. Like they want the plan laid out. Here's what I'm going to do, and here's exactly what's going to happen.
And you can give them a little bit of that. You and I both
Mm-hmm.
know, yeah, from corporate, it is okay to lay out, here's the plan. And also, if you don't do the plan, and that is your choice, if you choose to deny or block the offer, what we call blocking the offer in improv, then the progress doesn't happen. So it's really about baby steps because I find that with this kind of stuff, it can be overwhelming when it's new, right? It can be overwhelming, like because a lot of people's brains, especially in the tech space, in the corporate space, they're not wired to think that way. So when it's new, it's like, look, just take one or two things at a time. Start working on that, track your progress. And way more often than not, people are like, oh my God, it made a difference. And then,
Mm.
oh wow. Wow. It's sort of like losing weight. Once you lose those first couple pounds, you feel incentivized to keep going, but you need to see the progress and you need to
Yeah.
do it to see the progress.
Yeah, and I find applying that to myself as a performer who craves feedback.
Yeah.
If I try to go
Yeah.
too long without any results, I eventually just give up.
Yeah, of course. Who wouldn't? And I get that. And I think that's where I just think people are today, there's just a lot of unknowns. You know this as well from your business. It's like, and from speaking, it's the uncertainty. There's so much uncertainty that I think people feel like they don't control anything in their lives. And so this is one area where, like, look, if you do this, you will get better results, but you have to commit. So even little things they can do that they can see the progress on, it matters because they don't feel they have control at work. They don't feel they have control over AI. Some people are being asked to train their replacement.
Mm.
They feel it's training their replacement because the company hasn't done a good job of saying, no, 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 you're partnering with AI. So there's so much, I think there's just so much unknowns for so many teams that they're feeling like they're being asked to do everything with nothing. And
Mm-hmm.
it's the impossible. And I think we need to really look at the way that we're asking teams to do things. And it's gotten so unfun and unhuman.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So is that the when you're kind of hired by a company, is
Mhm.
there like are you noticing a specific sort of challenge? Is it just overwhelm and burnout, or is it now tech and AI, or is there
Yeah.
are you seeing kind of
Yeah.
a grouping of the problems you're dealing with?
Yeah, the problems are pretty consistent. I think it's dealing with uncertainty, it's dealing with change. And because I know
Mm-hmm.
you speak on this. I think it's really change. And I'd say the biggest problem is change and they don't know how to lean into it. They don't know how to, they haven't been trained for it. So, leaders are, and here's the thing that shows up all the time, and it cracks me up is leaders are like, oh no, my people are ready for change. And you talk to the team, and the team's like, we are not, we do not, no, we do not have support. And there's always like, and so the leaders are shocked, I tell you, they're shocked that the employees feel this way. And so it cracks me up. And I see this like 8 times out of 10, I'll see that disconnect. And I think change is the big common theme is teams don't feel prepared for it because they don't feel supported. And
Hmm.
so that is probably the single biggest, and you can apply it to different things like communication or product or whatever discipline, but overall, that is the big theme. Yeah.
So let's say we've got a leader listening here, and they're like, "All right, we're rolling out this big change. It could be
Mm-hmm.
we want people to use AI, or I
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of like we're rolling out new corporate values and want people to embrace them, like whatever the change is, or reorg."
Yep.
Now, obviously, this is overly simplifying, but like, what would you give them like a tip or two? Like, how do they get started on this process? Right, beyond saying, "All right, we got to hire Kathy to come in and work with our people," which of course
Oh
they should
yeah.
do. But in the meantime, while they're getting ready to do that, like,
Yeah.
how can they immediately start sort of smoothing that road to change?
In my experience, it may seem just like obvious, but companies don't do it. Leaders, sit down with your teams, tell them what you know, be honest about the things you don't know, and let them know that it's if things aren't working, you're there to smooth it out. You will take feedback, you'll course correct. So I think you can have a goal of rolling out AI, but be flexible in how you get there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't just roll over people. So your goal won't change, but the plan of how you get there, be flexible about that plan. You and I both know that if you're, and I think that's the biggest thing I see is they have a plan. They don't talk to their people. They didn't factor in the human fear. They didn't factor in the human stuff. And now they're shocked, I tell you, that adoption is low. And the teams are like, but they never talk to us. So you know, be willing to adapt the plan. Don't have to drop the goal, but be willing to change up how you get there. And if you're not talking to your teams about like what you know and what you don't know and being honest about it, that is the single biggest thing. And I know a lot of leaders feel like I can't get vulnerable. Well, you should start getting vulnerable because your team thinks that you don't care. And it's probably not that, but you're not willing to get vulnerable with your team and you're going to
Mm-hmm.
need to start telling them. And I think that's really just having the conversation of it is really, I think, the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's funny. I think it's so you talk about how it's simple or it sounds obvious, and I agree. And there are times where I'm wondering why I even have a job.
I know. It's just so obvious. It's
Yeah,
like,
and so I'm working on a new book, and on using yes and to deal with change, and so I've been interviewing leaders, like share with me instances of when you've led change successfully or how you've struggled,
yeah,
and it's almost universal. The ones
yeah,
that work, they're like, I got the people involved, I sat them down, we did like exercises, I talked with them, I let them have input, and we
yep.
communicated clearly. And the ones that didn't was like, yeah, we pushed too fast, we just kind of told people here's what you have to do, and it's like it's so obvious, and yet it's still like ubiquitous that this is the problem. And I'm like,
It's,
really? Am I going to have a job just to come in and tell people, oh yeah,
I know,
just
I know.
like
It's,
sit down and talk to your people and listen to what they say, like that'll
now,
be X thousands of dollars now. Thank you.
now give me $50,000 for that.
Exactly, exactly.
Exactly. No, it is funny because when I say that, you're so right. Like talking to a fellow improviser, it's just one of those chalk it up to like in the obvious column, check.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was obvious, people should be doing it and they're not doing it. And from the work I see, they're not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes the obvious thing isn't the thing that's obvious to everybody. And I've had to learn to appreciate that. And it's exactly right. I mean, you can plan all you want to, but if your people aren't involved, you're just going to have a really hard time with it.
Mm-hmm. And so let's talk about why they don't. And I know you
Yeah.
have a whole thing around fear as a four letter word, and
It
so
is a four
and I
letter word. Not my
assume
favorite. I have some favorite ones.
yeah, yeah, some stage appropriate ones versus
Well, yeah,
there's like stand up comedy appropriate, improv comedy appropriate, and then like corporate presentation appropriate.
it's three different stages.
It is.
Yeah.
Uh, so and I would assume we say it's so obvious. Why don't people do it? And I think sometimes they forget, but I would assume a lot of it is just fear, like you said, of being vulnerable. So can you talk a little about
Yeah.
kind of your
Yeah.
thoughts around that?
Yeah. I think it's exactly what you said. It's the fear of being vulnerable and looking like, oh my God. That's like me. I'm supposed to know everything. I'm supposed to know everything. Somebody said to me, a leader said to me, Kathy, I'm supposed to know everything. That's my job. And I was like, well, who said it's your job? Well, I feel like I'm supposed to know everything. And I'm like, you're not supposed to know everything. And I said, and I was like, well, what would happen if you told your team? We don't know because AI is so new, for example. We can't possibly know how it will work in the future. We can't. We think it's this, but we don't know. And I was like, what's the worst that could happen if you just told your people that? And I was like, I have news for you. They already know you're not perfect. I know this is hard to hear, but get this. They know, but they don't know that you know that because you have never admitted, sort of, we're not sure. And what would happen if you just took one little leap of like trusting your team enough to handle it and trusting them and what that could do for the trust? And I've seen success where people are willing to do it. You don't have to roll over, but I think it really is about being willing to just say we don't know everything. We don't know all the unknowns. There's unknowns here, and we're willing to course correct. And like you, we're learning, and if your team knows that you're in it with them, that's a whole different ball of wax, right? So that's usually where I start. And are there people who say, "Well, I can't do that"? Sure. And then I say, "Good luck." But the ones who are willing to do that find shock of shocks, right? Obviously, the resistance comes down. The resistance of their people comes down, shock.
Hmm.
So it's really interesting to me, and I laugh, and you'll appreciate this from your background too. It's like we throw technology, and I know this from Silicon Valley, we throw technology at the issue like tech is going to solve every problem. It's not going to solve every problem. This is a human problem.
Hmm.
You can't throw technology at a human problem and stop trying. It just doesn't, that's not the answer.
Yeah, I think it's the vulnerability is so it's just so weirdly ironic. Like you said, like people don't want to say I don't know because they feel it will make them lose credibility, and yet it's like one of the fastest ways to gain credibility is just admit the things you don't know, so that
Yeah.
because people can smell when someone's BSing you. It's like no, you're reducing your credibility by not saying I don't know, but you're doing it to try to increase your credibility.
I know. It is crazy. It's the end run. We try to do an end run around being relatable. And vulnerability is part of that, but the team already knows that. And if it makes it feel better, future leader or current leader or aspiring leader, if you hear this message, they already know you're not perfect, but just admitting that you don't know things really bonds you to your team because they realize, okay, y'all admit you don't know, they trust you more, but you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out together. I think that message of being in the trenches with your people is really what they need to hear. It's not what they don't need to hear. It's what they need to hear. That here's the plan. But remember, nobody really knows how this AI thing, for if in the case of
Hmm.
AI, how this is going to go. Nobody knows. We're all guessing. And even the people who developed AI don't know.
No, they don't.
This is a Pandora's box to some degree, and we have to admit that there are variables we don't know. But we cannot throw tech at every problem. It will not, and it will make it worse. So when your team expresses concern and you don't address it, you are ignoring the problem. And so communication is really important to take down that resistance.
Well, it's wild because as you're saying that, I realize it's more important now than it used to be because
Yeah.
AI and tech is replacing so much. That in the past, all right, you got this new tech tool. Well, you still had to get
Yeah.
together with people and talk. Now it's like AI is replacing that. So if we don't proactively connect
Yeah.
and be vulnerable and get that human connection, like you're gonna really fall behind and get completely obsolete.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And ignoring the problem just makes it worse. I think your people are like, why are you? They feel like they're ignoring the problem. And then that actually looks worse. That goes
Mm-hmm.
worse for you because then it looks like you don't care, which probably in most cases is not the case. It's just that people are really afraid to have that vulnerable conversation. So, it's so much worse to just to your people thinking that you don't care. So I think it's much better to swallow that pill and just say, look, we don't know. Either way is going to be maybe a challenge, but I promise you, if just by being open with your team, they at least feel like the door's open to that conversation. They can have it with you. Because not addressing it, Man, you and I both know that ignoring the elephant in the room is just not the answer. It's not going to get you anywhere.
No, it is definitely not. All right. Well, this has been great. I'm gonna
Yeah.
finish up in a couple minutes here. I'm gonna ask you some quick questions to finish up.
Yeah.
But first, let's find out if people want to learn more about you, connect with you, potentially talk to you
Yeah.
about bringing you in to work with their teams or organization, or have you as a speaker.
Mm.
What are the best ways to find and connect with you?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. The best ways are still like keepingithuman.com. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I am trying to be good about checking my spam box, but like checking like my DMs on LinkedIn is like opening the door to a closet you've shoved stuff in and you know it's gonna you're like it's gonna fall on me. I don't want to open it.
Are you
Um,
getting a lot of dating requests?
I'm getting all the stuff that you wish you didn't. Yeah, I get the stuff that I'm like, there's no way this should be on LinkedIn, but I get
Yeah.
it, and it's getting out of control. But you can link in with me there, and you can also, like I say, keeping it human is probably the easiest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay, and
yeah,
we'll link to the website and LinkedIn. We'll put a link to your book as
yeah,
well. So a couple short, kind of quick fire questions here.
yeah.
One, in two parts. Do you have
Mm.
a favorite improv game to play, and do you have a favorite improv game to use as an applied improvisation tool with groups?
I love, okay, there's two games I really love equally. Yes. One of there, I love the story spine, but more than the story spine, I call it monkey wrench. You can call it pattern interrupt or
Mm-hmm.
story interrupt. And that's getting people, where somebody's telling the story, Avish, and then somebody else, will interrupt them and they have to integrate that suggestion and keep the story going. And I think that's really good practice because today we're disrupted and interrupted all the time, but we still have to keep going. And
Mm-hmm.
so, how do we integrate all these different suggestions? And then sometimes the opposite is true. Sometimes I have to teach people not to say yes to everything and to learn how to say, I hear you. Yes, and we'll deal with that next week. And so,
Mm-hmm.
depending on the muscles that need to be worked, I love that game. I love it so much.
And that's when you love both playing and using for the audience.
Yes, I love it. I think it's just a multi-purpose in the words of, of AI, in the world of AI, I think it's just sort of the Swiss Army knife. It works on
Mm-hmm.
uncertainty, communications, on saying yes and on listening, because you have to work and hear the suggestions and you have to learn how to do both. And it's
So you're
chaos.
just telling a story, and then a fellow cast member or someone in the audience will just yell a suggestion like, "Oh, a bear walks in." Now you gotta.
Yeah, and then you're like, and then that bear came to the lemonade stand, and that bear was really tech savvy. We set up a Wi-Fi thing, added Stripe.
Oh, I like that. I like
And you
that.
have to integrate, and I think it is such a, listen, you're going to get disrupted at work all the time. You're going to have
Mm-hmm.
multiple priorities. How do you integrate these things and keep going? How do you listen? How do you do that? And I think it's such a great skill to not be thrown off every time that
Yeah.
happens. So I call it monkey wrench,
Mm-hmm.
but it's known by many names in the improv world. But I love that. I love that game.
Oh,
Yeah.
fun. Very fun. All
Yeah.
right, last question. I ask this at the end of all of my podcast interviews, and we may have similar answers here. But yeah, I do what I do. I talk about yes and instead of yes but because I think the world would be a better place if everyone just had a default mindset of yes and instead of yes but.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what is one small thing that you believe if everyone did, it would make the world a better place?
Oh my gosh, so many things. I think if people embrace their imperfection,
Hmm.
not only would you go easier on yourself, but I promise you this, when you're easier on yourself, you are more accepting and easier on everybody around you.
Ooh, I love that. That is a great answer. So, embrace your imperfections, keep it human.
Hmm.
Kathy, thank you so much for being here. It's a great conversation.
Yes, thank you. It's so lovely to see you and to chat.
Yeah, great, awesome. Well, everyone, go to links; they'll be in the show notes. And Kathy, we'll have to do this again sometime. Thank you so much.
Please, I would love it. Yes, and.